A farmer in 1877, China strikes the frozen earth, his shovel glinting under a sky that should be heavy with monsoon clouds, but is instead a searing, cloudless blue. He is not digging for water. He is unearthing the roots of a dead tree. The bark will be ground into a bitter powder. This is the last harvest. Estimates suggest that between 9 and 13 million people were about to be erased. But this event was not an accident. What connects this silent famine to a plague that broke the Roman Empire 1700 years earlier? And what does it say about your own sense of security in the systems you trust today? To understand the scale of what is about to unfold, you need to picture two worlds at the absolute zenith of their power, separated by an ocean of time. First, you must see the Qing Dynasty in 1876. This is not a fragile, failing state, but the most populous empire on Earth, ruled from the Forbidden City in Beijing, a place that smells of ancient cypress wood and incense. The dynasty is presided over by the Guangxu Emperor, who ruled under the mandate of heaven, a sacred contract that the heavens will bless the land with prosperity as long as the emperor is just. For 2 centuries, this contract had reportedly held. The empire has a vast, complex bureaucracy and, at the time, a large standing army. Its grand canals move grain and goods across thousands of miles. To an outsider, it looks eternal, unshakable. Now, travel back 17 centuries. You are in Rome in the year 165 AD. The air here is thick with the scent of roasting meat, cheap wine, and the sweat of 1 million people packed inside the Aurelian walls. The Roman Empire is at its absolute peak, the era of the 5 good emperors. It is ruled by 2 men, co-emperor Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, and Lucius Verus, his adopted brother. The empire stretches from the gray shores of Britain to the hot sands of Mesopotamia. Its legions were considered undefeated. Its roads, a marvel of engineering, bound an estimated 50 to 90 million people into a single economic and military superpower. Both of these empires, Qing China and Antonine Rome, believed they were the center of the universe. Both were masters of their known worlds, and both were about to be broken by an enemy they could not see, fight, or comprehend. They were brought to the edge of ruin not by armies or rebellions, but by something utterly silent and microscopic. But the real surprise is what this unseen enemy exposed about the very foundations of their power. And this is where the story stops making sense. The end begins quietly. In China, it starts in 1875 as a simple absence. The monsoon rains, which for centuries had arrived in the north like clockwork, are late. Then they reportedly do not come at all. Farmers watch the sky, a searing, cloudless blue, day after day. Wells that had served villages for generations turn to mud, then to dust. Provincial governors begin sending memorials, urgent, encoded messages to the court in Beijing. They describe crops withering in the fields. They use the ancient characters for drought, for famine. But in the Forbidden City, the messages are filtered through the censorate, a bureaucratic body reportedly more concerned with political loyalty than provincial panic. The court is distracted by internal power struggles and the ever-present threat of European encroachment on the coasts. The reports are filed away. The Grand Council discusses border defenses, not empty granaries. In 1876, the rains fail again. Now the reports from the countryside change. People are eating leaves, then tree bark. The price of a single bushel of grain reportedly inflates 1,000%. Still, no imperial decree is issued. The local magistrates, men who are supposed to open the emergency state granaries, find them nearly empty. According to historical records, for decades, corrupt officials had been selling off the public grain reserves, replacing the stock with sand and chaff, and falsifying the records. The system designed to save them was a phantom. You can almost feel the cold dread in those local government offices as clerk after clerk opens the ledger, then the granary door, and realizes the safety net they believed in does not exist. But the truth of what was really happening was far more insidious than simple corruption. Meanwhile, 1700 years earlier, the trouble also arrives from the east. In 165 AD, the legions under the command of Lucius Verus returned to Rome in triumph from their war against the Parthian Empire in Mesopotamia. They marched through the city in a grand parade, displaying captured treasures to the roaring crowds. But they bring something else back with them, a passenger hidden in the lungs of the soldiers. The physician Galen, the most famous doctor of his age, is among the first to document it. He describes a fever, a black rash, a horrific cough, and a foul smell on the breath of the dying. He calls it a pestilence of unknown origin. The disease reportedly begins in the port of Ostia, where the soldiers disembark. Then it travels, just as a merchant would, along the stone-paved Roman roads. It moves at the speed of a horse-drawn cart from one city to the next, from Rome to Gaul, from Gaul to the Rhine, from the Rhine to the Danube frontier where Marcus Aurelius is fighting the Germanic tribes. The reports sent back to the Senate are clinical and detached. They list the number of dead legionaries, the number of dead tax collectors, the number of dead citizens. But what those reports don't capture is the sound of entire apartment blocks, the insula, falling silent. They don't capture the sight of bodies being pushed into the Tiber River at night because there is no one left to bury them. The empire's response is not panic, but prayer. Priests perform elaborate rituals to appease the gods. Marcus Aurelius reportedly orders the execution of Christians, believing their impiety has angered the heavens. He is fighting a biological war with a theological solution. If you had been a senator in Rome during those years, you would have watched your colleagues disappear one by one, their seats in the curia left empty. You would have seen the greatest administrative machine in history grind to a halt because the men who ran it were either dead or had fled. In both China and Rome, the response was the same: denial, then ritual, then a slow, dawning horror. The worst part hadn't happened yet, and what nobody realized yet, not even the people involved, was that this had already been decided. But there's a detail buried in the record that nobody flagged at the time. In Rome, the invisible enemy demonstrates its absolute power in the winter of 169 AD. It does not just kill the poor in the stinking tenements. It walks directly into the imperial palace. Lucius Verus, co-emperor of Rome, conqueror of Parthia, a man considered a living god by millions, is returning to the front lines when he is struck by the plague. The symptoms are swift and brutal. For days, the most powerful man in the world is reduced to a feverish, delirious body. Galen and his team of physicians are helpless. They can set bones and stitch wounds, but they cannot fight a ghost. Lucius Verus dies. His death is not a political assassination or a battlefield casualty. It is a biological event. This wasn't about power or strategy. It was a statement from nature itself. Your titles, your armies, and your gods cannot protect you. Think about the person you believe is the most powerful, the most untouchable in your world today. Now imagine them succumbing to a common virus, their entire apparatus of power rendered completely useless. That was the psychological shockwave that hit Rome. The emperor's death proved that everyone was vulnerable. The social order, the belief in Roman exceptionalism, was profoundly shaken. The divine protection the emperors were meant to enjoy was shown to be a myth. A deep, existential dread settled over the empire. Back in China, the betrayal is not of one man, but of the entire social contract. By 1878, the famine has reached its peak. In the villages, there is nothing left. No grain, no bark, no animals. There is only one currency left: human life. British missionaries and the few journalists who dared to enter the famine zone document what they see. They write of markets where men stand in silent lines, holding their children, with small signs indicating a price. A daughter for 5 pounds of grain. A son for 10. This was the ultimate betrayal. The family, the most sacred unit in Chinese culture, was being systematically dismantled by hunger. Parents who had done everything right, worked hard, paid their taxes, honored their ancestors, were forced to make a choice that is a moral and biological impossibility. They sold the thing they loved most in the world just to survive another day. The sound of those silent transactions, the quiet weeping in a crowded, desperate marketplace, was the sound of a civilization breaking its most fundamental promise to its people. And the reason nobody stopped it is stranger than anything that came before. Here's where it gets worse. What happened next in both civilizations reveals a terrifying truth. These were not random, chaotic tragedies. They were the product of a system working exactly as designed. And here's what should make you deeply uncomfortable. This wasn't unusual. In Rome, the plague spread with such devastating efficiency for one reason. The Roman Empire itself was the perfect incubator. The very things that were the hallmarks of its greatness became the instruments of its destruction. The famous Roman roads, over 50,000 miles of paved highway, allowed the virus to travel from Syria to Spain in a matter of months. The massive grain shipments from Egypt and North Africa, which fed the city of Rome, also reportedly carried infected rats and fleas. The densely packed cities, a sign of Roman urban sophistication, became death traps, where the disease could jump from person to person with ease. The legions, the most disciplined and mobile army in the world, acted as super spreaders, carrying the plague to every corner of the frontier. The Antonine Plague was not an attack on the Roman system. It was a parasite that thrived within it. The horror is realizing that Rome's strength was its greatest vulnerability. In China, the famine revealed an equally horrifying systemic failure. The official story of the Qing Dynasty's collapse often focuses on the Opium Wars and Western imperialism, but the Great Famine exposed a rot that had been growing for a century. The Qing government's granary system, once the envy of the world, was designed to store surplus grain in good years to be distributed during lean ones. It was the state's primary defense against famine. But by the 1870s, that system was hollow. Years of corruption, embezzlement, and neglect meant the storehouses were empty. When the drought hit, the one mechanism that could have saved millions had been dismantled from the inside by the very officials tasked with maintaining it. The starvation was not just a natural disaster, it was a man-made catastrophe, a direct result of systemic government failure. The famine wasn't an accident, it was an inevitability, the final bill for decades of institutional decay. But none of that prepared anyone for the specific, systemic loss of faith that would follow. What the survivors did was lose faith. That is the one thing no empire can survive without. What you now understand, and what most people never will, is that these events were not the cause of collapse, but the moment of revelation. They were the blinding flash of light that showed everyone the throne was empty. In Rome, the plague didn't just kill people, it killed the idea of Roman invincibility. For centuries, the Pax Romana, the Roman peace, was built on the promise of order, stability, and the protection of the gods. The plague shattered that promise. With up to 1/10 of the population dead, including vast numbers of soldiers and administrators, the empire was critically weakened. The military couldn't recruit enough men to defend the borders. The economy collapsed as trade ground to a halt and farmland was abandoned. This wasn't a temporary setback, it was the beginning of the end. The Antonine Plague is believed by some historians to have directly led to the crisis of the 3rd century. A 50-year period of civil war, barbarian invasions, and economic depression that nearly destroyed the empire. Rome would limp on for a few more centuries, but the fatal wound was inflicted here. The real killer wasn't smallpox. It was the loss of confidence in the system itself. And the part nobody could explain came next. In China, the effect was even more direct. The emperor's mandate of heaven was predicated on his ability to maintain harmony between heaven and earth, to ensure good harvests and prevent disasters. The Great Famine was seen by the populace as proof that the Qing had lost that mandate. It was a cosmic vote of no confidence. The government's pathetic response, a trickle of aid that was too little too late, confirmed the people's worst fears. The emperor was either unable or unwilling to save them. This realization lit the fuse for revolution. The famine survivors who didn't die or flee became the angry, dispossessed generation that fueled the anti-Qing movements, culminating in the Boxer Rebellion and ultimately the 1911 revolution that ended 2 millennia of imperial rule. The famine proved the system was a lie. The government was not a protector. It was a predator. And that is the systemic truth. Great powers do not die from external shocks. They die when the people they rule realize the entire structure is hollow. The answer to the question you've been sitting with this entire video is this: how does a government let millions of its people starve? It happens when the machinery of the state becomes more concerned with its own survival than with the survival of its citizens. The Qing court prioritized political stability over human life, viewing the famine as a provincial problem, not an existential threat to the nation, until it was far too late. And what connects that starving farmer in China to the dying legionary in Rome? It is the terrifying realization that our most complex and powerful systems, our trade routes, our governments, our armies, contain the seeds of their own destruction. Their efficiency in times of peace becomes their efficiency at spreading chaos in times of crisis. The Roman roads built for conquest became highways for disease. The Chinese bureaucracy built for control became an engine of neglect. The strength of a system is always, without exception, the source of its greatest weakness. You have been told that history is a story of great men and great battles. The truth is that history is more often shaped by a microbe, a shift in the jet stream, and the slow, silent decay of the institutions we trust to protect us. We are back in the field in Shanxi province. The farmer has finished grinding the elm bark. He packs the bitter, worthless powder into a small pouch to take back to his family. It will not save them, but it is all he has left. That image of a man trying to draw life from a dead tree is the enduring legacy of these events. The next time you walk into a grocery store and see shelves fully stocked with food from a dozen different countries, you are looking at a modern miracle. A system of global logistics more complex and far-reaching than anything the Romans or the Qing could have ever conceived. But it operates on the same principles of interconnectedness. It is just as vulnerable. Remember what you just heard. The systems you rely on every single day for your food, your water, your safety feel permanent. They are not. They are fragile contracts, and history shows us, again and again, that they can be broken in an instant by something you can't even see. Tell me in the comments which part of this stayed with you.